You're standing in the International Arrivals Hall of Narita Airport at 6:47 in the morning, holding a carry-on with a broken wheel that drags slightly to the left, and you're trying to remember if you told your landlord back home that you weren't coming back. You think you did. You're almost sure you did. The flight was 14 hours, and you spent most of it watching a documentary about deep-sea fish that live so far down they've never encountered light, and somewhere around hour 9 you fell asleep and dreamed about your old apartment, the specific way the radiator knocked 3 times before it started working, and you woke up to the descent announcement feeling like something had already ended. But that's not the right way to think about it. This is a beginning. You tell yourself that as you follow the signage toward customs. This is a beginning. A little context because it matters. You are 31. You have a degree in something practical that turned out not to be, a resume that reads better than it performs, and approximately 4 years of experience feeling like you are building towards something without being able to name what that something is. You had a relationship that ended the way slow punctures end. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just a gradual deflation until one morning you woke up and realized you'd both been pretending for about 8 months. You have a skill for pretending, it turns out. You speak functional Japanese. Not fluent, functional. You learned it the way adults learn things they love but can't fully justify. Late at night, through apps, through shows, through a particular devotion that feels embarrassing to explain to people at dinner parties. You had a job teaching English in Tokyo for 2 years, which is how you met Kenji, and that is really the beginning of this. Though the actual beginning, the real one, was probably the moment you decided to stay an extra year instead of going home. Going home to what, exactly?
Right.
Kenji is 36. He works in logistics for a mid-sized import company in Shinagawa. He is quiet in a way that took you months to understand wasn't coldness. It's just that he processes things internally first and speaks second, which is the opposite of how you operate. And for a long time you mistook his silence for depth, and his depth for the kind of person you'd been waiting to find. You were not wrong about either of those things. That's important to hold on to later. He has a habit of folding his jacket very precisely before he sets it on a chair, always the same way, sleeves first, then in thirds, then placed with the collar facing up. You noticed it on your 3rd date, at a izakaya in Nakameguro, the soft paper lanterns throwing orange light across the table, the kind of evening that feels composed, like someone arranged it. You noticed the jacket and thought, this is a person who is careful with things. You also have a habit of making green tea every morning, not with a machine, actually brewing it 2 minutes at 75 degrees, in a clay pot his mother gave you that has a small chip on the lid you were terrified about for weeks. He told you it didn't matter. He said the word wabi-sabi, and you looked it up afterward and thought about that concept for several days. These are the details. The jacket.
The tea.
The chipped pot. Remember them. You get married on a Saturday in April, which is, and this timing is not lost on you, you appreciate it aesthetically, cherry blossom season. Sakura. Falling in slow, impractical pink drifts across the shrine courtyard where the ceremony takes place. The kind of beauty that feels slightly excessive, like the universe is making a point. The ceremony is small. Kenji's parents, 2 of his colleagues, a friend of yours named Priya, who flew in from London and kept whispering this is insane in the most affectionate way, and a photographer who moved so quietly through the space you kept forgetting he was there. You signed documents afterward. Several documents. In a small administrative office off the main shrine building, fluorescent light, a desk with a laminated sign you can't fully read. Kenji handles most of the paperwork. Your Japanese is functional, remember, not fluent, and some of these forms are dense with kanji that sits just outside the edge of your vocabulary. It's just registration, he says. You nod. Of course. The first 3 months are unremarkably happy in a way that feels almost suspicious in retrospect, though it shouldn't. It was just good. That's allowed to have been just good. You live in Kenji's apartment in Setagaya, a quiet ward in the southwest of Tokyo, far enough from the tourist circuitry to feel like actual life. The apartment is on the 3rd floor of a building from the early 90s, slightly narrow hallways, a genkin at the entrance where you still instinctively pause every time you step inside, because the habit of removing your shoes before you feel fully arrived has become, without your noticing, entirely natural. You stop teaching and start working remotely, content writing, editing, the kind of work that exists entirely inside a laptop and pays in a currency that requires occasional conversion. You set up a corner of the second bedroom as a workspace. You buy a small plant. You name it privately after no one. Every morning, the tea, the clay pot, 2 minutes at 75 degrees. Every evening, Kenji home by 7:30, jacket folded on the chair by the door, dinner together, conversation that moves slowly and lands quietly, the particular intimacy of two people who have stopped performing for each other. On weekends, you go to the market in Senganjaya. You learn which vendor has the better daikon. You develop opinions about tofu, which is not something you ever expected to have opinions about. This is what stability feels like, you think. This is what you were building toward. Day 3 of the marriage, not the honeymoon, the actual marriage, the living together as married people part. You notice something small. You are unpacking a box of your books, arranging them on the shelf in the second bedroom, and Kenji comes to the doorway and watches you for a moment and says, "Maybe we can find a better place for those." Not the shelf in the bedroom, not displayed prominently. You look at the books. You look at him. "The shelf in the living room is already organized," he says reasonably. You say okay. You move them to a box in the closet. It is a completely reasonable thing. It is not a fight. It is not even a discussion. And you forget about it within the hour because you've found a restaurant nearby that does handmade soba, and the noodles are extraordinary, and that becomes the thing you talk about at dinner. But the books are in the closet. This is the thing about small moments. They don't announce themselves. Kenji's mother visits in June. She is a small woman from Nagoya, precise in her movements, with a warmth that operates at a frequency slightly below what you can fully access. She brings omiyage, the specific gift-giving culture of returning from somewhere with wrapped items, and she and Kenji have a conversation in the kitchen for about 40 minutes while you sit in the living room pretending to read. After she leaves, Kenji mentions carefully that she had some thoughts about the apartment. Small things. The arrangement of the kitchen. The way you've hung a piece of fabric from home as wall art in the hallway. She's just traditional, he says. Of course, you say. The fabric stays up for another week. Then it finds its way to a drawer. This too is reasonable. You are living in his country, inside his family's gravitational pull, and there is a version of you that genuinely wants to get this right, that understands adaptation as a form of respect. That version of you moves the fabric. The visa situation is this. You came on a spouse visa, which is sponsored by Kenji, which means its existence is tied to his. This is standard. This is how it works everywhere. You understood this. What you did not fully understand, or did not let yourself sit with, which is different, is what it means to build a life inside a legal structure that belongs to someone else. Your health insurance is through his employer. Your residency registration lists the apartment as your address under his family registration, the Koseki, a document that traces lineage and family membership in a way that has no real Western equivalent, not a family tree, exactly, more like a ledger, an official record of who belongs to what. You are on the ledger now. In September, your remote work contract ends, the company restructures, which is a thing companies do, and it's not personal, and you begin looking for new work. Japanese companies tend to hire through specific channels. Your Japanese is functional, not fluent. Many positions require fluency, or a specific university credential, or a network you are still on the outside edge of. You find contract work eventually, sporadic, underpaid, the kind that pays in months where it pays and doesn't in months where it doesn't. Kenji covers the gap. He does this without complaint, without ledger, without a single weighted pause. And this is kindness. That is what it is. But kindness can also be a structure. And you are inside it. You have a fight in October, the first real one about money. Not the money itself, exactly, but the conversation about money, the way he mentions carefully and not unkindly that it might be easier if you let him manage the shared account. Just for now, he says, while you're finding work. He is not wrong that this might be easier. He manages things carefully. Sleeves first, then in thirds. He is a person who is careful with things. You say yes. You say yes because it's reasonable, because you are embarrassed about the income gap, because you are tired and the apartment is warm and the tea is already made, and the path of least resistance has the particular quality of feeling like wisdom when you are standing inside it. You discover in December that you are pregnant. You discover this on a Tuesday morning in the small bathroom with a frosted window that looks out onto the building's shared wall, the plastic test sitting on the edge of the sink, and you stand there for a long time looking at it. You feel, and this is the honest version, many things simultaneously. You feel something that is adjacent to joy. You feel something that is adjacent to fear. And you feel, underneath both of those, a specific quiet, like a door closing, like the last train pulling out of a station you hadn't decided whether you wanted to be at. Kenji cries, quietly, when you tell him. He holds your face in both hands and says something in Japanese you understand perfectly. I've been hoping for this.
You hold on to that. You'll hold on to that for a long time.
Your daughter is born in August, the hottest month in Tokyo, at a hospital in Setagaya where the staff are efficient and kind, and where you are handed forms periodically that Kenji fills out because you're Japanese, functional and not fluent, is not sufficient for medical documentation. You name her Mia. Kenji's family calls her Mia-chan. She is registered on the Koseki. She is Japanese, by birth and by documentation, in a way that is deep and administrative and real. She is also yours. Both things are true. The first year of Mia's life is the year you lose track of yourself in the most ordinary ways. You are awake at 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. and sometimes 5:47, which is almost morning but not morning enough to feel like relief. You are fluent in hunger cries but not in the pediatrician's instructions. Kenji translates, patiently, consistently, in a way that slowly begins to feel like, and this is the thing you cannot say out loud, a form of management. He is not doing it to control you. You believe that completely. But when the person who translates your world is also the person your world depends on, something about the geometry shifts in a way that's hard to diagram. Your friends from before, Priya, others, the dispersed network of your previous life, are a time zone and a life apart. You speak to them through screens, which is fine, which is how it works, except that the version of you that exists in those calls is slightly fictional, slightly curated, because there are things you cannot explain without spending 40 minutes on context first, and by the time you've built the context, you've lost the feeling. You don't know what you would say, anyway. Nothing has gone wrong. That's the thing. Nothing has gone wrong. In the spring, Mia is 8 months old, and you mention, carefully, the way you've learned to mention things that you'd like to visit home. Not move. Visit. 2 weeks, see your family, let your mother hold her grandchild. Kenji's response is measured. He says it's complicated with Mia so young. He says flights are expensive. He says maybe in autumn. Autumn becomes a conversation about his work schedule. The work schedule becomes a conversation about Mia's routine. The routine becomes, and this is where the shape of it begins to fully emerge, like a photograph developing in slow motion. The routine becomes the reason. There is always a reason. All of them are reasonable. Here is what you learn later, in a way that arrives as information but lands as something heavier. Japan has not signed the 1980 Hague Convention on International Child Abduction for most of its modern history. It signed in 2014 with reservations. Enforcement remains inconsistent. There are thousands of documented cases, primarily Western parents, primarily fathers, but not exclusively, of children taken to Japan and kept there, courts ruling in favor of the Japanese parent, the other parent left without access, without recourse, without legal grip. You are not in that situation. You are still married. Nothing has been filed. There is no crisis. But Mia is on the Koseki. Her primary residence legally is Japan. Her pediatric records are in Japanese. Her life is here, entirely, in a way that your life never fully became. And you realize, sitting in the small workspace with the plant you named after no one, the clay pot with a chipped lid visible through the doorway, the tea cooling in your cup, that somewhere along the way, without any single decision you can point to, the map changed around you. You didn't lose anything. That's not quite right. You just slowly became someone who could not leave without leaving the most important thing. There is a word in Japanese, shaganai. It means roughly it cannot be helped. It is not resignation exactly, more like an acknowledgement of forces larger than individual will, the kind of philosophical acceptance that can look like wisdom from the outside and feel, from the inside, like a room with no door. Kenji uses it occasionally for small things. Traffic.
Rain.
A meeting that runs long. You used to find it peaceful. Priya calls on a Sunday evening. Mia is asleep. Kenji is at the table working, Jacket folded on the chair beside him, sleeves first in thirds. Priya asks how you are. You look at the kitchen. At the pot. At the specific orange cast of the evening light through the window that you have looked at so many times it has become, not yours exactly, but part of you. You look at Kenji's back, the particular way he holds himself when he is concentrating, a posture you know better than almost anything. Good, you say. And that isn't entirely untrue. But somewhere in the apartment there is a drawer with a piece of fabric in it, and a closet with a box of books, and an 8-month-old child asleep in a room full of things that belong to a country that is, legally and practically, more hers than it will ever be yours. It's really beautiful here, you say. The cherry blossoms are months away. But you are already thinking about them. The way they fall, the way they last about a week, that strange specific pink that's almost too much, that beauty that feels like something ending. Mono no aware, Kenji called it once. The pathos of passing things. The tea, when you finally drink it, is cold. You are still there. That's the thing people don't ask about. Not what happened, but that you stayed, and that staying and being trapped can look, from the outside, completely identical to being home.